All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Yes. We'll not do that until item 4.
Item 4? Oh, there it is, okay.
So we'll do the public hearings first, a little bit of a change.
Got it. All right, so public hearing on application for a conditional use permit submitted by Clint Kloss for Hudson Gateway LLC for final development plans for Phase 1, Chapter 255-16 at the St. Croix Meadows redevelopment site, 2200 Carmichael Road. Anybody have any comment?
Just to thank you for your time, Mayor, Commissioners. Just to reiterate that the plan that you've seen on several iterations coming forward, this Phase 1 has not changed significantly since we've brought it before this body in the past, and so we are just seeking the approval of this item and then subsequent items as we move forward. And if there are any questions of this at this point, I'd be happy to answer them, but we'll defer as we move down the agenda.
All right, thanks. Anybody? Yes. Please identify yourself and give your address, please.
My name is Doug Rowan, 295 Riverview Drive. I represent the Riverview Drive Association. And in general, we're very supportive of this redevelopment project. The main request we would have is as the final plans for redesigning the intersection between Riverview Drive and Carmichael Road are finalized, we would request that both our association and the YMCA Camp St. Croix be involved in those dialogues. It's the only ingress-egress to most of the properties back there, and so we just want to be actively involved in the process.
Okay. Got that noted, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else?
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay,
Seconded.
got a motion second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing is closed. Public hearing on application for a conditional use permit as per Municipal Code, Chapter 255, zoning, Section 255-47B. Lighting standards over 30 feet in height submitted by Clint Kloss for Hudson Gateway LLC to allow lighting for the proposed stadium facilities at the St. Croix Meadows redevelopment site, 2200 Carmichael Road, for 8 poles.
Thank you, Mayor. Rob Keane, WSB and Associates. The request is I did provide some additional material that showed some of the photometrics for the site. What we're looking to do is we're looking to add poles that are going to get up to a maximum height of 110 feet. And what we're looking at is you've seen in the past with the school district, newer lighting technology, the ability to cut off at the edge of your area of interest. And essentially we zero out, if you look at what we've provided, we zero out to the edge of the field practically and just beyond it. So the intent is just to make sure that we light the facility, but we're not glaring into adjoining properties or causing any issues with neighbors. So if there are any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer those. If you have any questions about what was provided this evening, I apologize, it wasn't in the original packet, but some additional information we got from our lighting design.
I have a question. You referenced the school. Is your lighting of the identical type of the school?
It's LED, full cutoff. Essentially, if you look at the, and I don't know, Mike, if that,
I'll pass these out too.
I did provide some additional information for this evening. What we have here is essentially it's a graph that's going to show how the lumens drop off as we move away from the facility. So as you go from the center of the facility and then work your way out, we're essentially going from that full illumination in the center to essentially that break off right past the edge of the stadium itself. So it'll be very similar to what the school was proposing for theirs. And I'm referencing more the stadium lighting itself. You know, they did come forward with the tennis courts. This would be used less frequently. This would be more in keeping with what the stadium facility would be.
Okay, so I don't know why you referenced it. I just,
Sure thing.
how close is a reference?
I understand.
Got it? Anybody else? Thanks, Rob.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Ron Howard, 1902 Shasta Drive. I'm just wondering, I've read a lot in the paper, I haven't been to any meetings, but is there anything as far as curfew on what's gonna happen with the park? With the ball field, like a cutoff time, or, you know, can they play games till 2 in the morning, or can they have concerts till 2 in the morning? I've heard there might be concerts there, and just wondering, seeing as how there's, I think there's 160 houses within a half mile that will be affected by it that weren't there when the dog track was there, so.
Right. You know, I don't, do you have the answer to that by ordinance? Do we?
I think on a special event permit application, if it was a concert, something like that, something that would, we need to mobilize public safety, you know, police, fire, EMS services. I think we'd address special events that way.
Yeah.
We haven't broached the subject of, you know, late night games yet per se.
Yeah, I've noticed, and I haven't heard nothing about it, that's why
No.
I thought I'd come up here.
But I think that's I absolutely think that's a good discussion that, you know, will have to take place once we get to.
And I looked up like the league, the baseball league, the one in Eau Claire, they have fireworks on Friday nights after their games. And that's 10:30, 11:30, 12 o'clock maybe. I'm not sure how they do it, but they're in a different situation over there because there's no, it's a park, there's no houses in the area. So,
No, I think that's a really good point and something that we should certainly
that's
take a look at.
just my 2 cents.
I appreciate your
Appreciate
comment.
it.
Yeah, concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments?
Move to close?
Got a motion to close. You guys want to think about that, or?
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion, second to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. You want to do the minutes now?
Yep, do the minutes now.
Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion, a second to
We're all bits.
approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on a final master development plan, plat, conditional use permit, Phase 1, Chapter 255-16 at the St. Croix Meadows redevelopment site, 2200 Carmichael Road, claim clause for Hudson Gateway LLC.
In your packets, I included a narrative that I took out of the council packet from last night regarding some of the confusion I think that's arisen in terms of the amount of process that we've gone through for approvals. And it really pertains to 2 separate code sections, 255-16, which deals with specifically zoning things. That's what we're mostly considering tonight is we have the planned commercial development or planned unit development for this project. And there's what's called a final development plan approval process and the CUP. So we're working specifically in the zoning. Everything that you see in your attachment that's shaded in gray is part of Phase 1. From a zoning perspective, obviously there's additional things like underground improvements. There's going to be easements that are in existence from the previous development. When the dog track was there, those easements are still on the books, and we need to work at absolving those and vacating those easements. A lot of them are private easements from private utilities, and then basically setting up new easements to accommodate their new infrastructure. And that will be included in the final plat, which we'll approve later on in a subsequent approval. The other area of confusion was in 255-85, which talks about final development plans specific to issuance of building permits. So later on in the agenda tonight, we have the Valley View project. That's a final development plan as is defined in 255-85. So we're talking about specific site improvements, buildings, vertical type things. We'll also have a final development plan approval for the stadium facility coming, and that would be the 255-85. So it's confusing because they're named the same thing, concept and final development plans, but they mean 2 very different things. One zoning, one building, if that makes sense. Really, as Rob stated earlier in his presentation, nothing has changed significantly from their preliminary concept development plan because they were so thorough in that first phase. The only thing that we're still working on is obviously some of the engineering pieces. We have a storm sewer lift station in the southwest quadrant of that property that we're going to take a look at, seeing what we need to do. And it's 25 years old. Is the equipment in there going to be able to function adequately to handle the additional impervious surface? So we're working on some of those items. But all in all, it's coming together, and this is just the next step for phase one on the CUP before we get.
So you're looking for a zoning approval for phase one?
Correct. And then each phase from now, every phase here forward will require a separate CUP, which will amend that overview sheet that's in your attachment and add, all the setback requirements, the parking, everything will be, added as we continue to develop the
I
site.
will move for the zoning of phase one.
And I will second that.
Got a motion second, discussion?
I would ask, if I could, that we also add in the condition the final plat approval be considered by Plan Commission and City Council, prior to
Yes.
further development.
I guess we call that standard language, so
Yep.
that's just in the.
Yep.
Okay. Discussion? Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on an application for a conditional use permit as per municipal code chapter 255 zoning section 255-47B, lighting standards over 30 feet height, in height rather, submitted by Clint Kloss for Hudson Gateway LLC to allow lighting for the proposed stadium facilities at St. Croix Meadows redevelopment site, 2200 Carmichael Road for 8 poles.
Pretty straightforward. I think Rob did a good job explaining, what the plan is, what the type of lighting is. We've received no comment from public other than what was presented tonight.
With the direction that the stadium's facing up on the hillside and away from the residential areas, I mean, they couldn't have chosen a better way to point the thing or face it, so I will move to approve.
Okay. Motion. Second. Got a motion, a second. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on final development plans for Valley View Center, 805 Dominion Drive, B&A Properties LLC.
So this was obviously discussed at the last Plan Commission meeting on May 23rd. Since that time, we've been provided additional detail as per what was required as the final development plan for 255-85. One specific question came up regarding traffic, and I think I provided an email today that had some additional numbers. I don't know if there's a ton that we can garner from it. Other than that, I think a lot of it is dictated by the economy. It seemed like, when the economy went down, traffic went down, and then when now it's recovering, it's going back up. So my thought and the way to address that is as we get, build outs of each of those suites, the tenant suites, that we go back and make sure, depending on that use, what impact will that have on our infrastructure, especially the Hagan Street Bridge. I think that's the biggest concern today. I drove out there at 5 tonight. There was a vehicle broke down, I think heading northbound over the bridge, and it was backed up, clear to this site. So that, along with the concept that, with the approval of the Carmichael Road corridor study that's going to, start kicking off here shortly, that intersection is going to be studied as part of that, not just Carmichael Road. So I'm comfortable at this point, recommending approval with those items.
So as they fill and do their build-outs, they're gonna come to your office?
Yeah, they would come to, it'd be David Gray, and then, he'd say, hey, we have business X coming, and then we take a look at, is it a drive-through, is it a, what type of impact can we, it's part of it's speculation, right?
Right.
Is it gonna be a huge traffic generator, is it not? And then we go back, and if it's a major type of site amendment, then we would, have further discussion.
Well, the other part of that too that I think was brought up in the past is as the Carmichael corridor gets more filled up, the Hanley corridor is gonna be the choice or the second one, and that, of course, is abutting this. And I think that's gonna drive the need for a wider bridge, it's gonna drive the need for a whole bunch of things, which this is peripheral to, but, you know, shouldn't affect it in any big way, but,
And that's a good point, and I think one of the things that, you know, we're doing our due diligence as a community to make investment in studying the corridor, and then obviously we'll discuss the establishment of a TID here shortly. We're looking at plugging some dollars into that corridor. And, you know, there's only so much we can do before that exit 2 redesign has to take place too. The state's identified the way that's gonna look, the bridge will expand. You know, if we can get that bumped up, I think that does nothing but help.
The Carmichael
alleviate-
Bridge.
Yes, the Carmichael Bridge.
But we need to put some focus on the
Hagen
11th
Bridge.
Street Bridge.
Yep, yep, and that will be, you know, part of that discussion too.
they look like low-impact buildings to me. I mean, not huge occupancies, you look at the number of parking spots and all that, and it's really no worse than what was there, it's just spread out more, and so I just can't see any real negative effect at all there.
I want to say that there were something like 136. The capacity of the old Perkins building was like, they had to have 136 parking stalls. Now there's only 59-ish, 59 stalls.
What's happened to that easement in front too, where the turn lane used to be and where, you know, when the car dealer wanted to go in,
We let it go
we let it go?
a couple of meetings, months back.
Okay,
And I
I
would've
did
been
something,
for
I
me.
just couldn't recall.
And we've got, you know, in terms of their sign location, obviously we talked about the final sign plan last meeting too. Obviously, there's some utility conflicts that kind of go through there that are a holdover from when that
Right.
ramp was there. So we're working through those as well at the staff level.
Fred, the last meeting, I brought the concern up with traffic. What we're looking at is a traffic pattern that was not the same when that Perkins was there. It's busier, there's more business on that side. I mean, I'm for the project, but we just gotta make sure we can address the issue across the bridge with that traffic.
I agree,
'Cause there's-
that's why I brought up the Hanley comments.
Right, no, that's, exactly.
Exactly. But the beauty of that too is there's also a rear exit there going, you know, past back by the Gallagher property and, you know, going out that way too, if need be, so it's kinda got a safety valve too, if you need to.
Kinda, unless they're
Kinda.
coming back around and going.
I know.
Eric Butler. I just, as far as the numbers, we do have info from the Wisconsin DOT. 2004, it was 14,000, and in 2015, it was 12,000. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page there.
It's growing though.
Absolutely.
Right. Anything else for Eric while he's here? Thanks, Eric.
I'll move to approve
Okay,
second.
with conditions that are listed or stipulated by our community development director, if there are any.
okay. Got a motion, a second, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on a resolution calling for a public hearing on proposed tax incremental district number 5. Boy, I just lost it.
Yeah.
Creation in the city of Hudson, Wisconsin.
So technically, this isn't a step that we need to do. We're just doing it because I think it's important to know and create that transparency for everybody that's interested in this. Basically, this is the TID that would be established as part of the St. Croix Meadows redevelopment project. So we scheduled a public hearing for June 20th's meeting, next meeting, where we'll discuss a draft project plan, what type of dollars would we be talking about in terms of potential incentive, what type of projects the city would be looking at for public improvements. What we're doing is we're gonna pay for a portion of the Carmichael Road corridor study out of that TID district if it were to be approved. We would pay probably, we'd be looking at some improvements to Carmichael Road within a half mile State law allows us to do improvements within a half mile of an established TIF district, as long as we delineate that in the project plan, the guiding document that tells you what you can and cannot spend your money on. So it's a way for us, and we pay for that, out of an increment that's created, the value that is created by the project. So it'd be separate from a traditional, general bond issuance. Any questions?
Is that necessary? Do we need to do that, or has it been asked for? I mean, why is this coming up? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a project. We know that we have things as a city that we need to do
Okay.
for this project too, and, and it's something that I think has been a priority of the community to redevelop that site. So, we know the value's there, or will be there. The increment will be there. We're looking at, these are big dollars, right?
That's
So,
what it sounds like.
yeah, so I think what we're interested in is it's defined as a blighted site, right? It's sat vacant for, 20 plus years. So the city's definitely interested in helping assist the cleanup of that site too. And I'm not speaking for council or the plan commission, but my recommendation would be absolutely that would be the avenue you would go to eliminate that blight.
Before we were to do that, do we know, is the state gonna give any incentives for this thing to do any of this? And so is it gonna fall only on the city of Hudson? Is there gonna be any shared, hey, we want this to happen, let's have it go for St. Croix County? I mean, I think that's a relevant question here because, who pays?
From an economic development perspective, yeah, we've engaged with WEDC. We'll be approaching, hopefully, the governor's office, whatever it might be. Obviously, it's a big project for us, and we're not a huge community. And having come from the economic development field most recently, I can assure you that we'll exhaust all those avenues.
I can tell you this, we initially reached out to the state. Unfortunately, we were past the deadline for some of the incentive money that they had. Obviously talking with our legislators about the project, the governor is well aware of the project and is very interested in it, and will be making a visit here sometime in the not too distant future. This is high on their radar right now. This is one of the largest development projects in the state going on right now.
And will this all then come together all at once, what we're talking about here, just so we don't prematurely get into something without hearing the
Yes.
whole story?
Yep, we'll have a full public hearing with a real complete draft project plan that, I told Sean he didn't need to come tonight. It was more important that he come next meeting to go through once we have more of an idea of what this is gonna look like.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you want a resolution from us authorizing city staff to spend time in going into doing this?
The public hearing, I think that's what Mike is asking.
Yeah,
I think we should schedule it.
Yeah, I'll so move.
Got a motion?
Second?
Motion and second, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Other business for information purposes only?
We've got, it's been busy. So you'll see some of those upcoming items. I'm trying to kind of handle all of these in very specific order. You'll notice that on this agenda, I moved the public hearings ahead instead of having the discussion and the public hearing at the same point. It's cleaner for me. I think it makes a lot more sense to do it that way. That's the way the council does it. But yeah, we have a lot coming up, the YMCA temporary structure, the brewery, I know that's been discussed, obviously prior to me arriving here. The final plat for the second ridge in Carmichael Ridge, the second edition, and then obviously we're moving on to the final development plan, so pertaining to specifically issuance of building permits at the next meeting as well.
We have a meeting scheduled for kind of the summer, or?
We'll have June 20th, and then, July, we wouldn't have July 4th, obviously, because that would be unfortunate.
Not very well attended.
So,
we are.
you know, we'll see how that all plays out, but if we did it the following week, is that something that the commission would be able to entertain?
So that's, what day is
So
it?
that would be then the Tuesday of the 10th,
10th?
or the 11th?
Yes. And I'll send out an email, we can,
July 11th, yeah.
that'd be my thought.
Try it.
Okay,
I'm good.
anything else? Everybody good? Any announcements, anything? Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to second, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's approved, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You're on record.
There you go.